episode number 167.
Hello, you're listening to the Career Changemaker podcast. Having the courage to leave a career that you have worked hard to build and try something else can be tough. So in each episode, we dive into key career change strategies so that you have a clear understanding of what is required to transition into a new role or a new industry without feeling like you have to start at the bottom or have to take a massive pay cut, because #ain't nobody got time for that. If you are ready for frank and honest discussions about how to become a career change maker, keep listening. I'm your host, lawyer turned career strategist and executive coach, Janine Esbrand. Hello, and welcome to today's show where I am delivering to you a guest interview, which I'm super excited about. I remember when I first started out in my legal career, the word networking had very negative connotations for me. I felt like networking required me to show up to events I didn't want to go to, hand out business cards, and not really know what I was supposed to be doing. However, since moving into starting and growing my business, I have really fully understood the power, importance, and joy in networking. And so today I want to demonstrate that to you by sharing a conversation that I had with an amazing woman called Nakisha Hicks. She is a fellow career coach, a veteran HR executive, and she works with women to guide them in their careers by assisting, equipping, and strengthening them to discover their potential. A woman after my own heart. And she has taken her own personal career change to a new level this year. And so I'm excited to dive in and talk to her about what it has felt like to make a career change in the midst of a pandemic, some of the things that she had to think about when she was deciding when and how she would make her transition. And then because we're fellow career coaches, we then dive into some actionable tips for you as somebody who's considering making a career move that you can take and apply. So it's going to be an awesome conversation for you to tune into. So without further ado, let's hear from Nakisha Hicks. Hi, Keisha. Welcome.
Hey, Janine. This is going to be fun.
I'm so looking forward to this conversation. So as we get started, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to everybody and tell them a bit about you, and I'll do the same for me.
I'm Keisha Hicks. I am a wife. I am a mom, first and foremost, before any title, right? Those are the most important titles. I am a past HR exec. Retired HR exec, I will say that, okay? And I am a career pathfinder. I'm a career coach, much like yourself. I specialize in helping women that are in HR really advance their careers, shift their mindsets, make more money. It's me.
Love it. And I am Janine. I am also a wife and a mother. So I will say those first two, even though I don't normally, but I will because you did. I am a former lawyer and now a career strategist and executive coach. And I support women in law and finance with making career transitions to help them to figure out what they want to do and then how they can reposition their experience to land roles that they love. So we're both career coaches, which is always exciting. But I want to dive in and I want to start with hearing more about your journey from being a HR executive and the various roles that you held there. And then now you transitioning. So I want to hear about your background and then we'll talk a bit more about what caused you to make the transition and what it's been like.
Well, I always tell people, Janine, that I'm not new to HR. I grew up in HR. My very first HR role was when I was 17 years old. High school, senior. Had no clue what I wanted to do, but other people decided for me. So, right? That's what happens. And so I ended up taking an HR coordinator role in a manufacturing facility. No clue what was going on, but I grew up in a household where excellence and average didn't live in the same place, but excellence lived in our house. Okay. So you had no choice but to be very good at what you did. And so my career was one that, yes, it started early, but I had a lot of transitions throughout my career. I didn't always stay in HR. I actually went into purchasing for a little while and in supply chain. I came back through the back door of HR, so to speak, through an HRIS system implementation project, and then went into an assistant HR director role. And from there, it just went up from there. I went into an HR director role. I did some time with some DE&I work, and then just recently left a vice president role. So that's been my career. It's kind of been like
Yeah, like lots of transitions in there, which I love. And so what would you say was the kind of catalyst for you to make your most recent transition? And what were some of the things that you were concerned about, or what was the thought process that you went through with that decision?
You know, I became a part of, what is it, the great resignation, the great reflection, whatever they want to call it right now, right? But the biggest thing for me, Janine, I think that the spark, the thing that like really got me was I just wasn't doing what I wanted to do anymore, right? I had made it I had met the goals that I had set for myself, but it was like I just wasn't doing that purpose-driven, fulfilling work that I really wanted to do. And not to mention, I didn't want to go back into the office. Right? I didn't want to be under somebody else's culture, so to speak. I wanted to be able to develop and grow my own. And so it wasn't something that I just did overnight. It was something that I actually worked on for like 2 years before I like really decided to pull the plug and say, okay, I'm going. And even when I pulled the plug, it was like, am I really doing this? Am I really doing this? So yes.
I can totally relate to that. I think a lot of professional women can relate to that, where it's like, I've reached all of the goals that I have now reached. And then you kind of get there and you're like, so now what? And you have to redefine those. And then that's the point where you're kind of looking around and saying, wow, what is next? And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I had that experience myself. And I think so many do. But then the next question is, well, then what do I do with that? Where do I take this? And it's interesting that you shared it wasn't a quick overnight thing. It was like a 2-year transition. And I think a lot of people assume they need to make a decision now and it's really urgent, and then they just need to act on it, which isn't the case, right?
But you know what? Here's the thing that I think so about Janine. Sometimes women, we are super emotional, right? And we make a lot of decisions based upon like how we feel, right? And not necessarily the rational piece out of it. And then I also think that we get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then we're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to do something else, right? And not truly think that thing out. But I'm more of a process thinker. I'm like, I have to have a plan. And that's the biggest thing for me. I have to have a plan. I have to have a strategy, because I am my fallback plan. And I don't necessarily have things I can just say, oh, okay, well, if this doesn't work, I got kids, I got a husband, I got a life. So I have to make sure that I had things in order. But I think so many times we get just tired and we just want to make really quick decisions. And I think it's being thoughtful about our decisions that help us to transition better.
Yeah, 100%. And talk to me a bit about that thought process that you went through, because I talk to people all the time about making data-driven decisions rather than, like you said, emotionally driven decisions, because they don't always work out well. So when you were thinking about, okay, I want to do this thing, I want to transition, what's my plan? How did you map that out in your mind before you could then go and execute it?
Yeah. So for me, rather than me jumping into another corporate role or something like that, I decided to jump out and do my own business. So that's a whole different set of parameters that you have to really think about, right? So of course, you do the traditional SWOT analysis type thought pattern to see what's really happening. Can you really do this? Who do you want to serve? Why do you want to serve them? All the things. But then it is also thinking about, what is your income potential? Like, be real, right? Like air doesn't buy like groceries. Right? Air doesn't pay the mortgage, right? Love doesn't pay those things. So it's like, how much can you really make doing these things? And then like, what are some things that you yourself are going to have to change about you in order, right? Because I don't know about you, Janine, but like jumping from being an employee to being a business owner, that's a whole identity shift.
It's been wild. So I made my transition in 2021, April 2021. And what I thought it was going to be and what it is in terms of just who you have to be is just chalk and cheese, like completely different. And so it's so important to recognize when you're making a shift, it's you're moving into something new, but you may be required to be a new version of yourself, which is okay, as long as you know that is required.
Yes. That is part of the preparation. That is part of the strategy. And that is also, it's preparing those people around you for the shift that is getting ready to happen. Because, I had to prepare my husband. I had to prepare my kids. Like, okay, this is my life now. Like, this is what I'm doing now, right? And it's different. And so, I think it's all about the difference in preparation. So I think it's thinking about things from a tactical perspective, but I also thinking about, the mindset shifts that you're going to have to do. And, there's people that are going to be different in your life, right? And I think that's okay. And reconciling all the feelings. Sometimes it's the guilt, it's the fear, it's all those things that you have to reconcile as you're making your transition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things when you are making a transition and you're doing the plan, the research piece and finding out the answer to this information is important, because I speak to a lot of people who make quick assumptions. So they would say things like, I would love to leave my career in law and do something else, but I couldn't because I wouldn't be able to afford it. Assuming that any other opportunity that they make, any other opportunity that they take will require them to take a pay cut. But then when I ask them what's that based on, they haven't actually gone out
done
there
anything
and had a look at to see what is out there. So I think it's important to recognize, let's not act from a place of assumption, but actually go out and figure out, is this feasible? And gather the data so that you can assess that properly.
Yeah. And you know what, to add to that, Janine, I think too, because I talk to a lot of people that are trying to transition into HR, say from somewhere else, and they've had massively successful careers and they've reached kind of the pinnacle in their area and they want to move over. And they've been told some not so great advice that they have to start at the bottom when they're transitioning in. And I'm like, no, you don't. You just have to learn how to really sell yourself. Or they'll say, I just need to take a role, and it is my pet peeve phrase, to get my foot in the door. And I'm like, no, you don't. Really. So I think it is doing the research and understanding, what are you working with and how does that translate into the next world that you're trying to go into?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's almost like people feel like there's boxes. It's like, okay, I was in this lane, in this career, and now I've moved over here, so I need to start way back when. But it's like, no, but you've gathered so much experience, so much exposure, so much business acumen that you can now apply in this new space that makes you stand out differently. Totally agree.
But it wears me out when I hear that. I'm like, oh gosh.
No.
I'm like, do you know how much money you about to lose? Let's be real. Do you know?
Yeah.
You're gonna set yourself back so far, and I don't know that you really want to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And so now that you have gone and made a big transition, does this transition feel a lot bigger than, because you've made various different changes in your career in the past? Does this feel bigger or different because it is working for yourself, or have you experienced similar emotions to other transitions that you've had in the past?
I don't know if it feels bigger, but it definitely feels different, right? And I guess the difference is that, again, I go back to, and I see we had a little bit of a comment here, question here. It is a new version of me, meaning that, and it's not I don't know if it's even new. I think it's an enhanced version of me. You know how we always say that we often don't use all of our gifts, all of our talents in our workspaces, right? We don't, because we're boxed into an agenda that whatever organization has for us, for that position that they hired us for, that's where we're boxed into. And so if we're lucky, sometimes we'll be able to kind of branch out and do those things that are according to our expertise or our gifts. But it's like when you step out and you become a business owner, now you get to fully operate in those gifts that you really had, right? And so it's like, oh, this is me, right? This is what I can do. And it's almost sometimes scary because there's not this parameter or guide rails that say, oh, no, you can't be that. But now you can be whoever you want to be. And you can determine and define this thing for however you want it to be, which to me is it's a bigger version in that respect, but it's just different. It's just different. And so it took me this is only month 2. So catch me in month 6. I might tell you something different. But I mean, it's me just figuring this thing out and really giving myself a lot of grace. It's not like you're waiting on somebody else to do it, but now you get to give yourself the grace and not beat yourself up.
Yes, 100%. And I think what I realized is everything that you just said around you having the opportunity to do more and shape more. And also you have to be a new version of yourself because there's different requirements in terms of, for example, boundaries. There are no boundaries. I have to create my own boundaries. I could come to work at midday if I wanted to, but I can't do that because I still have stuff to do. So I have to decide what that looks like. So that requires a different version of me who's not just showing up and doing what I'm supposed to do on paper, but showing up because I have results that I set, that I want to achieve. And so I'm going to act accordingly. And that's a very different way of operating and wearing like different hats throughout the day. Then
100%. 100%. And it's like a boldness that you have to walk into that's different. So, you know, everybody that wants to say, oh, I'm an introvert, I can never do that. I can't. Listen, I am an introvert. I've taken a test 15,000 times and I am. But it's like, but that can't be the limit to how I move, right? Like it just can't. But so many people, I can't talk to people. I'm like, okay, well, you don't want to go very far then. Like,
yeah, in everything, any role, you need to be able to show up and speak your piece. But I think that as you increase your level of self-awareness, you're able to do the things that you need to do, whether this is in your own business or within a role that you're in a way that works for you. Like it doesn't, everything doesn't have to be done in this prescribed way. You can still get to the same result, but approach it in a different way. But you have to have that like awareness to be able to do that.
Totally.
Yeah. There was another question in here that said, Teresa said, what makes you take the risk to leave a secure position? Yeah, so you were quite up there in terms of your role and the fact that you worked your way up to the top, which is very secure, kind of, in this economy.
I mean,
What made you say, yes, I'm here, everything's good, but I'm going to go this route, which some would say is risky, but if you've got a good plan, it doesn't necessarily have to be. But for you, what was it?
I mean, you know what? I just wasn't happy anymore. Like, bottom line, if you boiled it all the way down, I wasn't happy and I wasn't doing the things that I really felt like I was created to do. You know, and that's the thing. It's like, I talk to many of my clients all the time. I'm like, okay, I get you can do certain things, but do you want to? Like, you can eat a whole pizza, but do you want to? Right? Like, is that really what you want to do? Right? Like, if you don't want to do it, then, I mean, yes, you're going to be showing up. And my thing is that I'm a woman of a certain age. And I was like, I'm tired of not doing what I want to do and not having the liberties to do the things outside of that I want to do, you know, take the vacations with my kids or be there for my kids or just have the free time for me. You know, like I was tired of being unhappy.
Yeah. And that question though, when you ask, I don't know about you and with your clients, but a lot of the clients that I work with, when we ask the question, or when I ask the question, what do you want? It's a really hard question to answer because a lot of times we haven't actually been allowed to just share what we want. It's like we've just been in a box and on a path and just doing the thing. And so asking yourself that question, what do you want, is actually quite a challenge for a lot of people.
It is. It's scary because it's like, you know, when I find that some people don't even know.
They don't know.
You don't know because you've been so used to what somebody else has wanted for you or being able to fit into the box of what somebody else designed that you, when it comes down to what you want, you're like, I don't know. And or you're convinced that what you want won't happen because you've never seen it before.
That part.
And so because you've never seen it before, it can't be real. And so I think that that's a huge thing for so many people too.
Yeah. And when you think about the biggest challenges that people face when they're looking at making the transition, are there any others other than that in terms of what holds people back that you would give them advice around based on your transition?
I think the biggest thing is, of course, they have to see themselves in a different light, see themselves differently, right? They have to, because I created a post about this, but it's like, what would happen if you saw yourself differently? What would happen if you talked about yourself differently? It's not about experience levels. It's not about, I don't have the experience to do, because many of us have lived and we've learned and we've made a lot of bumps and bruises and we've learned from those. So it's not about the experience. It's about the confidence to be able to talk to your story and to really be able to really talk about who you are and be able to claim it and boldly hold on to that and say, this is me, right? And so regardless, if I don't have all the experience to be this, I can learn how to do this based upon my past.
Yeah.
But so many people are like, they're stuck and fixated on, I don't have. And so it's almost like this lack mindset that they operate from is like, well, I lack the experience. I lack the time. I lack the degree. I lack this. It's like, okay, we get that. But what do you have? Right? It's like, I understand. But what are we working with here? Right? Yeah. Like, show me what you're working with so that we can then take that and really leverage that to get you to where you need to be or where you want to be, rather. Yeah. Right? But so I think it's people being able to see themselves outside of what they lack. But I think it's also people being able to really put themselves out there. Because what I found is that with myself personally and with my clients, it's like when you're thinking about transitioning, it is about who you know. It is not about what you know. Like, it's great because we just talked about experience doesn't matter. It is about who you know. Mm-hmm. And it is about being able to stretch yourself, come out of your comfort zone, because so many of us only talk to the people that we know, and we kind of wait for people to talk to us. And it's like, this is a market where if you want to move around, you can. I mean, it's totally an employee market now, totally now. So if you want to move around, you definitely can. But you have to put the things in place, and you have to grow and cultivate your networks. Yes. And I think that is something that holds a lot of people back, especially like some of my clients. And I give them homework, like literally go find 10 people, go find 10 new friends, right? And it's like literally because they have to be able to branch out and be able to put themselves out there for visibility purposes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I love what you said about the experience piece, because I think that so many people are focused on, I need to have done the thing in order to do the thing. But if you think about it, whenever someone's promoted, like, or if someone's a CEO of a company, like, it's not that you've done the thing before. That's not why they're promoting you, because you haven't done the role yet. It's because you have the ability to figure it out. So your track record demonstrates that you have the ability to figure it out, which is what you get to lean into. So like you said, it's like, it's not about your experience. It's about your ability to then take what you have and then move it forward. When we talk about moving outside of our comfort zones, it's like, it's a muscle that we have to exercise. If you're not used to going out and speaking to someone new and just reaching out to someone, you're not going to be able to do it well. So it's like, you just have to take the first step, have the first conversation. And then once you do it and it's like, oh, that was easy, then you'll be able to do more. And so I love that you kind of challenge your clients. I do the same, like just go out, reach out to someone. And the reality is, I think the big hang up for a lot of people is, I don't want to get rejected. Like, I don't, but I say to them, it's not personal. And do you know why it's not personal? Because they don't know you yet. So how could it be? Like, they're just a stranger. There's billions of people out there. So I'd encourage everybody to do more of that. Like, we need
Absolutely.
to do
Absolutely. And if you get rejected, keep going. Somebody will talk to you eventually. Yes. Like, eventually somebody will talk to you, and you probably going to reject somebody. Be real. So I'm just like, keep going. It's okay. I did a thing where, just to kind of help people to like navigate this networking space, like, look, pick a friend, say something fun about yourself, pick a friend, tag somebody, like somebody, to reach out to somebody, like, really. But it's like, even if I say that to say, even if it's like, oh, I don't want to just cold call or randomly go speak to somebody, then look for ways to do it in a safer space, whether it's going and joining a community or, having a wing woman or a wing man with you, right? That can help you and can introduce you to someone. But the thing is that above all, it's about you showing up.
Yes.
And showing up in a new and different way.
Yes, absolutely. And doing it in a safe space. I remember I was listening to a podcast interview once, and the person was talking about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And their suggestion was, next time you're in the supermarket and someone in front of you has loads of groceries or loads of shopping, and you just have one item, just ask the person, can you go in front of them? Like, just ask, would you mind if I just sat in front of you just to, like, because I've just got this one thing? Because most people who have lots of stuff, they would say, yeah, go ahead. But it helps you to kind of step outside of the, like, oh, I'm asking, this is an ask. But it's just, they can say no. But those kinds of small things that you can just do to exercise that muscle, I thought was a great example.
I love that. Now, see, I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to be using now. So I'm just saying, like, here we go. But no, that's good. And you know what? I think too, people think they're bothering other people.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to bother them. I'm like, it's only a bother if you run up to them. Now, I don't know about you, Janine, but sometimes I'll get in my DMs, like people will legit just send me a resume and say, I'm looking for a job. And I'm like, but I don't know you. Help me to know you before I just...
Introduction, like background, something.
Just a little something. Like, I'm happy to help. But I think that's been a lot, especially during the last couple of years. That's been a lot with people, just people wanting to get opportunities. And so we just got to reset a little bit, right? Like, where are the niceties to it? Like, where are the good mornings, the salutations, right? Like, where are those things, right? Let's just go back to our manners, folks.
Yeah.
Go back to our manners. And then that's what helps to, grow and cultivate. Because I always say you never know when you're going to need people. So it's always good to know people before you need them, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, cultivate the relationships. It's okay.
And just be like normal. Like, how would you normally... And okay, I know that for some people, they haven't really thought about how they build relationships. So like, you have your same friends and your family members since you were young. You established those relationships, but you never actually had to strategically do it. But if you think about just in normal day-to-day interaction, like how would you talk to somebody? How would you strike up a conversation at a bus stop? And like, just think about bringing that energy to the online space. Like, this is just giving us LinkedIn, other platforms, just giving you the opportunity to have like a massive networking room online and just show up like a person.
I always tell folks, like, lead with something personal and then move in. Just like when you ask me to introduce myself, I'm a wife and a mom, first and foremost, because maybe you can relate to that. Or maybe not, but at least you know what I'm working with and you know my priorities at that point.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, let me ask you this and I'll go into the question. So, have you got a quote, a saying, a mantra that you like to live by?
Quote, a saying, or a mantra that I'd like to live by. Everything is figure-outable.
Marie Forleo says that.
Everything is figure-outable, right? Like, it is okay. Like, we'll be okay. We will survive. Like, it is okay.
Yeah. I love that. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So there's a couple questions that I wanted us to just touch on because these come up a lot amongst people that I speak to who are in this space of like, what am I going to do next? And I'm sure you get these questions as well. So I thought we can address it here. And the first one is how to know what type of career change to make. People are always like, I don't know what else I would do. Like, how do I even figure that out? So what would you say to that?
First thing, what are you good at? Right? Like, I always tell people, like, what are you good at? And here's a tip for you. If you're trying to figure out what you're good at, think about your family and your friends. What do they often ask you for help with? Consistently, what do you show up as, right? Like, for me, I show up as the plug, so to speak. In my family and friends, if somebody wants to know how to do something, know where to get it, they call me, right? I am a connector of people. I don't know how that ever happened in my life. Like, I think back, maybe I was the little girl that like, hey, let me introduce you to my friend. You want to play with us? Like, maybe I was that person. I don't know, but I don't even remember. But I am that person. Or if somebody can't figure out how to do something, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Let's figure it out. Let me show you where we can go. And so thinking about that, think about and make a list of what are you really good at? Now, when you make it a list of what you're really good at, just because you're good at it doesn't mean you want to do it.
Yes.
And I think that then once you make your list of what you're really good at, then go back through that thing, look at it and say, okay, I'm good at this, but I don't want to do this.
Yes.
Make a few things there. And then I think from there, you start to zero in on, okay, if I'm really good at like puzzles and solving problems and all the things, but I don't like being people facing. I don't like having to really talk to people. I like being behind the wall or behind in the background. Then don't go into a customer service role, right? Like, don't do it because you're going to have to deal with people, right? Like maybe something behind the wall is better for you. Maybe something like tech or IT or something programmatic might be better for you than, something people facing. But think about what is it that you're really good at and what's important to you.
Yes.
Right. And so my thing is, if you like, I don't like being in fast-paced environments or things that have a lot of ambiguity, don't go in a startup, right? Like, because there's probably a lot of ambiguity there, right? Like, look, but I think it just starts with just figuring out what is it that you're good at and what do you like?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think like it's so important to start with the self-awareness piece, because I think a lot of people start externally. So when they're looking at options, they just go onto job boards and they're like, does this sound good? Does this sound good? And my thing is, what's your criteria for good? Because if you haven't figured out what are you good at, what do you like, what do you value, what are your strengths and all of that, then it's hard for you to determine whether this is good for you. So I think, to your point, there needs to be that level of self-awareness first before you can go out to the marketplace and say yes or no to any opportunity. And then when you're saying yes or no, you're doing it from a place of, yeah, this is right for me, or it's not right for me, versus I think it's good. Should I just test it out and see? It's like, no, we don't want to just be jumping from role to role to role.
Right.
Like, yeah, this sounds like it's the thing. And then I can position myself accordingly.
Totally not like making spaghetti and throwing noodles on the wall and hoping that something sticks.
Exactly.
Totally not that.
We're not doing that.
Totally not that. Like, we want to be intentional.
Exactly. And I think that's what puts people off. Like, when they are thinking about making a move, because they haven't gone through that process, it feels like spaghetti at the wall. And then it feels too risky. It's like, oh, no. Like, I can't risk my security to go to that. Because it's like, yeah, why would you do that? Like, why would you just guess?
But I think it's the urgency. It's the urgency. It's like, I got to hurry up and get this done. And it's like, I tell my folks all the time, it's so much pre-work. Because if you sit down and you do the preparation and you do the pre-work and you do the self-reflection and you do all the things, then it makes the job search so much easier.
So much. Yeah.
Because you're not, and it saves you so much time and frustration. And you talk about job searching is one of the most judgmental, full of rejection spaces I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's like a blind date gone wrong, right? People don't know you, right? They're swiping, trying to figure out, do they want to talk to you, right? They're looking at your criteria. Then they might have this blind date, AKA interview with you, and then decide if they want to continue a relationship with you or not.
Yeah.
They can literally say, no, thank you, next. Like, that is like,
yeah, it's cutthroat.
Right. It is a blind date gone wrong. Like, no. So my thing is, at least pick your person. Pick what you want to do.
Yeah. And when you've done that work as well to figure out if this is right for you and you realize it's aligned, I think you show up differently when you're coming to the interview, because it's less about like, oh, can I impress them? And it's like, no, this is what I know that I want. I need to know, are you the right organization for me? But that confidence comes from you being sure that your skill set is aligned and your experience is aligned and you've got something to bring to the table.
Totally.
Yeah. And that leads on to the second thing. Like, when people are thinking about making moves, how do you stand out in this market? It is a employees market right now. But as you say, there's so many people applying and recruiters can just be like, next. So what would be your one thing to say, or one tip for how you stand out amongst the sea of applicants?
Yeah, I think it is getting very clear on how you show up as the painkiller and not the vitamin, right? Being able to truly articulate your value. Nobody cares about a person being a hard worker. Nobody cares about that. People just reward hard work with more work.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody cares about, oh, I'm a hard worker. Nobody cares. Oh, I'm a team player. Nobody cares about, those are cute phrases, right? Yes. But the thing is being able to demonstrate your value, being able to demonstrate how you have really made key contributions, big or small, but how like definitely there is a void when you're not there, right? Yeah. Like you have to be able to demonstrate that, because that is what is going to set you apart in the competition.
Yeah.
It's not about, regurgitating a job description or any of those things. It is about how are you articulating your value in this market?
Yes.
Because that is also going to help you when it comes to negotiating how much money you want. So you got to show up as the painkiller and not the vitamin, because nobody, when their head is hurting, nobody says, oh, let me reach for the B12. Nobody says that. I don't know. Janine, do you know anybody that says, let me reach for the B12?
No, it's like, I need a painkiller. I need a paracetamol. Give me the thing.
Like, you know the exact name of that thing, right? I don't care where you are. You're like, I need an aspirin and I need this particular kind because this one won't work, but this one will. I need ibuprofen. This one won't work, but this one will. Like, you are so specific about it when you are in pain.
Yes.
Right? You're not trying to go for no, like, oh, let me get a Flintstone vitamin. No, you are not doing that, right? You are reaching for the thing that you know can cure the pain, which means that when you're transitioning, it is key for you, going back to your research piece, to understand what is the pain point for that organization that you're trying to go into, so that you can even the more talk about how you can resolve that pain for them. And that's what sets you apart.
Yes, 100%. And I would say, especially when you're thinking about your CV or your resume, the specificity, what I see so much is people just like generally talking about, I organized this or I managed a team. It's like, when we get into the specifics, like that's what actually demonstrates to the person reading that you could potentially do that for them. Like I was talking to a client the other day and she was talking about how she helped to save her whole organization a ton of money. So she was like, you know, we saved this amount. And I was like, okay, well, what was it before though? And what was it after? And then when we worked out the percentage decrease in budget spend, I was like, why is that not here? Like that percentage is going to make someone say, wait. You saved how? Like 50%?
We need to get her in here immediately. Like call her in for an interview, please.
I manage the budget well, you know? So it's like we need to get specific and like really put yourself in the shoes of the person who's reviewing it. Like, can you speak to it in a way where they're going to be like, oh, we need this person?
But let me ask you this, Janine, and this is something I run into with my clients. Do you run into people saying, well, I have a hard time talking about myself?
Keisha, here's my answer. There are times in your life and spaces in your life where modesty is good. Not during the job search process. This is not
at all. Not
like,
at all.
You need to just be like, this is who I am and this is what I can bring to the table. It might be hard for you to talk about yourself. That's why you hire a coach so we can help you draw it out. But you have to, because other people are going to do it. If you don't do it, who's going to do it?
And other people that have half the experience that you have.
Yes.
Okay? And know they can't do the job, but they'll be up there like, watch how many times I can inhale and exhale. See, I'm great. I'm a warm body. You like, and you sit over there sitting on all this greatness and you're afraid to talk. But here's the thing. I think sometimes that not being able to talk about ourselves is really internal work, right?
Yes.
It is figuring out why. Right. It's going deeper and understanding why. Is it that you were raised in a household where it was like, you know what, modesty is the thing. We don't talk about how good we are. We keep it to ourselves. Is it that, you know, there's an issue of worth or value? Like, I'm not valuable enough. I'm not worthy enough. Or is it that? Is it something that someone spoke over you as a child, some adult that was crazy? I don't know. You know, but the thing is that I think we have to reconcile that, particularly when you are a woman of color.
Yes.
We have to reconcile those things because systemically we don't, like, if you look at data, we don't ask for raises as much. We don't negotiate our salaries. We apply for roles that we can almost 100% do because of this whole notion that we're not worthy or we don't have enough value or we can't contribute. So I think it's like, if you want different, you definitely have to move different, which means that being able to talk about yourself.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you say, I don't want to talk about myself because I don't want to come across as arrogant or whatever, the fact that you even think that means that you're not arrogant. Like you can't be, because someone who is arrogant isn't even having that on their, you know, it's not on their radar. But I think the point that you just raised there, it's so important to be aware of, like, what are the things that are holding me back? And one of the reasons why I love like group coaching containers, I know you run a group program, I run a group program, is it gives you an automatic network of people who you can see and walk alongside, and you can see that, okay, they look like me or they're similar to me in experience and they just did the thing that I'm too scared to do. So if they can do it, I can do it. And I don't think you get that in any other setting. Like when you work one-to-one with a coach, it's fantastic because they're going to guide you. But that extra element of like instant community who are doing the hard things too, especially for women, people of color who are coming from a background where everyone else in your life is not doing what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
You're trying to step out. and not everyone's doing that, it's so powerful to be in a container.
I mean, totally. I mean, I think I would say it's unity and community, right? Like it's, because to your point, I mean, I have lots of friends that are, completely educated and all these things, but they're not business owners, right? They're not. So for me to even be in a coaching container right now with you, right, is a wonderful thing, because it's like, okay, they get it. And so what Janine's doing, like, okay, I'm behind Janine, but she's done it. So she's done it. I can do it. So to your point, absolutely 100%. And I think that's the importance of it. And it's not only, to me, I think when you get into these containers, these group containers, I think it's also important for you not just to show up for yourself, but to show up for the group and to bring value to the group. Because I think that, yes, you're helping other people, but it also enriches your experience and really helps you to flourish and grow and move about like you need to.
Yeah. And again, it's a safe space for you to practice the skill set that you need outside. So if you run a business, you need to be able to show up. So showing up in a container that you're in helps you to practice. And if you are in your career and you're not used to networking, you're in a group. You can then practice those networking skills with those other people before you go out and like unleash it to the world. And so, I just think it's looking at what resources do you currently have that you're not utilizing? Because people have friends, they have people within their networks who have moved on to other roles within industries they're interested in. You could just call your friend from like high school and say, hey, I just saw on LinkedIn that you've moved over here. Can we have a conversation? That's networking. Like it's as simple as that. Like, so look for the easy wins versus feeling like it's a huge task to step out there and put myself where I need to be in terms of positioning. Yeah.
Because when it's huge, you won't do it.
Yeah.
Because it gets too scary. And it's like, it's like eating the whole elephant. You're not going to do that. You're like, nah, I'm good. It's too big. I'm okay. Next. Right? But it's like, take a chance on you, but show up for you.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, this has been such a good conversation. So Keisha, if there is anyone watching who is a HR professional, who's looking for support, how can they find you, and in what ways are you helping people through your business right now?
Sure. I do have a signature program geared specifically towards HR professionals. If you are interested in that, definitely follow me, connect with me here on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to learn and to know more about me. I could throw you to a website, but guess what? You wouldn't know me. And so I definitely say connect with me on LinkedIn, because that's when you're going to see a lot of my content on LinkedIn. I also have a community that you can be a part of that will even show you even more. So definitely come on in that way.
Yes. And do you have a podcast coming out too?
I do. It's coming. We're finalizing episode 1. Okay. But, and the following episodes are coming out. But true story, to put myself out there, about a year ago, I hosted a daily room on Clubhouse. And it was a way to really get my voice out there.
Every day, Keisha?
Every day, Monday through Friday. Yes.
Wow, that's commitment.
It was. And I didn't mean for it to be that way.
Okay.
Like, it started, and then it was like people kept showing up, and I was like, okay. And then it just became this thing. And so it was called The Morning Mindset, because I'm a huge fan of all things my morning and really, really setting my morning. And I think as a professional, like, you have to have a morning routine. Like, there has to be something to your routine. And so part of mine is really spent doing a lot of reflection and really figuring out a lot of introspective work in the morning. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring this to this platform. And so I did it every single morning for like 4 months.
Wow.
Yes. And so then I put it down and I started moving it, doing more live videos on LinkedIn. And I was like, okay. And then people would ask, like, when is it coming back? And I'm like, it's kind of done. I'm not going to do it anymore. And so then I got asked I actually handed that room over to one of my fabulous friends, Kim Blue, who now has it as the Blueprint. It's called the Blueprint. She does it now 3 days a week.
Okay. Right? That sounds more manageable. Like, every day is a lot.
I'm telling you, every day was a lot. But I did. And I mean, but here's the thing. It was like going into like boot camp training for what I want to do from a content perspective, being able to create the content, being able to host the rooms. Like, it really was training for me. Yeah. Really. And so she asked me one day to co-host her room because she was going to be out, and put it as The Morning Mindset via the Blueprint or something like that. And so then the morning mindset was birthed again. So now on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, I do the morning mindset live on LinkedIn. The morning mindset is being now repurposed into the podcast.
Wonderful.
So it's just staying consistent. So, because I'm not that creative, Janita. I'm not that one. I'm like, oh, let's do this name and this color. And I'm like, look, that works. That works right there. So let's go.
It works. And I mean, this conversation that we're having right now on LinkedIn Live will be on my podcast in a few weeks' time. So like repurposing is the way to go because audiences are in different spaces. But like, I hope for those of you who are listening, you see that you can get creative with stuff. There's not one way to do things. Like whatever the goal is, like you can get it done. And so, yeah, I love that. So thank you for coming on. And yeah, like as I said, I do career coaching too. And my program is more focused on people in professional services, so lawyers, accountants, and people who have actually range of backgrounds in professional services, and just supporting them with figuring out what the next step is. And my podcast is Career Changemaker. So if you want to check that out on iTunes, you can. I love the show. And it gives me the opportunity to interview amazing people like you. So you're going to love having a podcast if you if you introduce interviews and stuff as well. So I'm
so excited. I'm so happy to have been here, Janine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And thank you for being here.
How awesome is Nakisha? She's so lovely and funny, and it was just a brilliant conversation. And I hope that you picked up some of what we were putting down in terms of gems and nuggets when it comes to your mindset, when you're approaching your career change, when it comes to how you can be positioning yourself and what you really need to be doing to move from where you are now to where you want to be. Now, I'm going to put Nakisha's links in the show notes. So if you head over to careerchangemakers.com/episode 167, you will find the show notes over there. And if you're someone who has an interest in HR and you want to pursue a career in that area, then I would definitely suggest that you look up and connect with Nakisha. All right, that's all from me today. I will be back with you very, very soon. Bye. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any future episodes. Also, I would love to know what your biggest takeaway has been from today's episode. Come over and join us in our Career Changemakers community over on LinkedIn so that you can join the conversation there. Head over to lightbotscoaching.com/community and it will take you right to the group. I look forward to seeing you.